Hey, everybody, we're alive and live here at Leak Project. Look who it is, Greg Allison. I like to call him Rocket Man. Excellent. Great to see you, Greg. It's been way too long. I know you just built a house out there in Arizona. You've got an awesome homestead. You moved from Huntsville, Alabama. I've got family out there. I know that's the place of rocket scientists and super engineers. So it's great to see you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Rex. How are you?
Fantastic. Thanks for the opportunity. And for those that haven't heard of you before, I don't know where they've been, but I do want to give a quick introduction. We are going to talk about several subjects today, folks. So you want to stay with us throughout this entire presentation. And then towards the end, we're going to jump over to Patreon and talk about things that we can talk about over on Patreon. So jump on over to our Patreon page after. But we're going to get into some very deep discussions here at YouTube. We're going to talk about the latest power outages that have affected entire nations. We're going to talk about the film Leave the World Behind and how that appears to mirror certain events that have taken place. We're going to talk about the very real possibility of a blackout here in the States as well. It's not necessarily if, but when. What are some of the problems that could arise? And how could an electrical grid failure happen to where it would be catastrophic? Well, Greg is an expert. He has actually had courses and meetings and gatherings with people at the top of their fields in hopes of protecting the electrical grid. Let me just give you a quick introduction. Greg Allison is a seasoned aerospace engineer. He's also got a Guinness record from the year 2000, launching a rocket into space. He launched it so far into space from a balloon, super incredible. He's also an electrical grid safety expert, prominent advocate for space exploration and infrastructure resilience, a diverse background spanning NASA projects, military systems, grassroots innovations, bringing a wealth of knowledge to discussions on technological preparedness and sustainability. Nanu. Aerospace and NASA contributions. Mr. Allison has held pivotal roles in several aerospace initiatives. The International Space Station, worked as a systems engineer specializing in robotics for Grumman. Electrical power systems, served as an integration engineer for Mevitech Corporation. Payload integration, contributed to external space station experiments at Teledyne Brown Engineering. Safety and product assurance, engaged in projects like the orbital space plane X-37 High-Techs with Hernandez Engineering. Also, his efforts have been instrumental in advancing space technology and ensuring mission safety. Beyond aerospace, Greg is deeply involved in electrical grid safety, avionics system safety, performs system safety analysis for NASA as a contractor with Bastion Technologies Incorporated. Grid resilience advocacy, actively discussing the vulnerabilities of national power grids to threats like solar flares, cyber attacks, and emphasizing the need for robust infrastructure. Also, Greg is a proponent of self-reliance. Allison founded Green Greg's Garden and Worm Farm, promoting sustainable agriculture and homesteading practices. His initiatives aim to empower individuals and communities to achieve greater independence and resilience. He's also a public speaker and thought leader. He is a regular guest here at Leak Project, where he shares insights on topics ranging from space exploration to infrastructure security. I think we're going to have a lot of fun today here, Greg. So let's just jump right in. Folks, check us out on Patreon. Also, check out our website, tinfoilcap.co, for the ultimate in EMF protection from head to toe. It'll block all different types of EMF frequencies, and we've even got the equipment to prove that. And make sure to join us for our petroglyph tour. Four Corners area. It's going to be June 28th. I'm going to leave the link in the video description box. We're also going to check out Skull Castle, like Skeletor. It's pretty cool. These things are off the map. The petroglyph panel is off the map. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. June 28th. So the links are in the video description box. And also subscribe to Greg's channels. He has several. Green Greg's. You've got Green Greg's Space.
There's Green Greg's for space. There's Galactic Greg's. And coming up with this Swivelhead News channel, I want to take more of the news stuff that I cover, prepper news and political news, and put it on Swivelhead News. Eventually, I'm going to go more and more to that, because I got to my topic area on Green Greg's is too diverse. The algorithms don't know how to handle it. Causes some issues.
Yeah, the algorithms definitely have some opportunities. Well, Greg, let's jump into this, man. Seriously, I feel very honored that we're friends, and I thank you very much for all the work you do for everybody. You work your tail off, man. You're always doing something. You're always looking to help people, and I applaud you for that. And folks, we were also on the Weather Channel a few years back. So it was called Weird Earth. If you ever get the chance to watch that series, it's season 1. And Greg and I are on that. Had a blast working out in California with you on that project. But okay, so check this out. I know you know about this. Spain and Portugal, April of 2025, a significant blackout affects both Spain and Portugal. They say the cause was a power imbalance on the Iberian grid, triggering a self-defense shutdown. The blackout itself was significant, and there's speculation about whether that was possibly nefarious actions behind the scenes that caused that. That's one of several examples. So, like, what do you think about all of these grid failures and where we're at right now with the geopolitical tensions around the world?
Well, the geopolitical tensions are off the chart right now. I mean, we're on the verge of war in so many different theaters. It's insane. But all that said, now it could be that the Iberian Peninsula grid was brought down as a test exercise for something else they'd like to bring down, like the U.S. grid. We know that our grid is massively hacked all the way through. And I did a video on this on Green Greg's talking about how China has hacked our grid at the power source, like the solar panels, and that could be what's going on there. The inverters, we've seen a lot of articles about that lately. What a lot of you don't know is the big transformers are hacked with cell phone components. We discovered this back at the end of 2019. Basically, we took one that was supposed to go to Colorado, and Sandia National Laboratories took it and looked at it, and they discovered it had black boxes with cellular communications devices in it, which were outside the normal operating range, which could have indeed shut this transformer down. They could also cause transformers to burn out. That's where you get the real problem. Those transformers can take years to replace now, and our grid is so reliant on them that the National Electric Reliability Corporation put out a study back in 2014 saying that if there were 9 particular substations, if taken out, would take down the entire national grid. So we've got to be worried about the hacking. There's also another effect that came out as report of that result, or the result of that report. My words are coming in backwards here. Time space is kind of backwards in my mind sometimes. But anyway. So the
and you also never sleep, so that might
be it. Yeah, I got 3.5 hours of sleep last night, maybe 3. Anyway, so I'm actually working with Star Lab now through APT Research. I'm doing avionics system safety for that project, and I have to meet with Germans early in the morning, which is late in the evening for them. So I got to get up real early now. Makes it harder for me to do videos. But all that aside, the situation is they've hacked these transformers, but they've also, it looks like they may be hacking the smart meters in the house. And there's also the supervisory control and data acquisition units that control the entire electrical grid. They're like, I don't know if people are familiar with industrial control systems like the primary logic computers. It's kind of like that, PLCs. But these SCADAs, as they're called, control pipelines. They control electrical transmission. In a lot of big buildings, they control HVAC. They're all over the place. Apparently, those things are massively hacked, and then this hacking is apparently in the firmware because they can't just take it out. There is prompts that you can program, but there's also burn-in chips where the software is actually burnt in. And to take that software, you got to remove that chip and put another chip in that's programmed properly. So they've got our entire grid hacked massively. Now, the crazy thing was President Trump in his first term had signed an executive order to disallow Chinese hardware and critical grid components. And the very first day in office, President that weekend at Bernie's, Biden, he came out and actually it revoked that executive order. His first day in office. And then we got hundreds and hundreds of these transformers in the United States now in our grid that can just be shut down. And what do you do about it? We've got, you mentioned some of my positions. I am now the Arizona State Director of the EMP Task Force on National and Homeland Security. Utah Spice, my mama says Greg is awesome. Well, thank you. Watch this, or I'm grounded. Okay. Oh, that's funny. So the whole situation is that hacking can take our grid down. And like I said, this could have been a dry run exercise at trying to hack a national grid. And, there's two things you can do. You can shut a grid down temporarily by just turning things off. Or if you turn things off in the wrong sequence and cause the wrong kind of imbalances, you'll cause other transformers to try to pick up the load and get overloaded and burn out. And this is where you run into real risk. Now, that said, there's also this idea that sleeper cells could take out our grid. Oh, well, let me go back. Let's talk about the Iberian Peninsula. There's another potential root source cause of that, and it could have just been imbalances between their power generation systems. They've gone totally green over there, almost totally green, to using solar and wind power. Well, solar and wind power are time variant energy supplies. If you ain't got wind, you ain't got power from that. If you don't have sun, you don't have power from that. And battery energy storage right now is still exceedingly expensive. They're working on that, but it's still extremely expensive to store energy in batteries. So you've got all these mismatches, and a power grid has to instantaneously supply the power it's generating, or generate the power that the demand is out there for. It's a very complex system to be able to do that. And it could be they got out of balance or got out of phase on that. And it could have been the cause of these shutdowns, kind of like what happened in Texas a few years ago, one winter, when a lot of the solar panels were suddenly covered with snow, and they discovered the gearboxes and all the wind generators didn't have Arctic grade lube or something in them, and they were jamming up and not producing wind power. And Texas, which is, the oil state, is using a lot of renewable energy. And if you drive through like I-40 in Texas, you're going to see a lot of those windmills. They cause problems too, and they came within seconds of actually frying their grid, which would have been like a permanent grid down. A lot of people lost their lives during that grid down in Texas, guys, and it was very serious. So you've got to worry about renewable energy as a reliable source, because especially time dependent type, weather and dependent energy sources are very problematic. Oh, somebody likes my wall color. Yeah, I got tired of white walls. Everybody's got a white wall or off-white, and I'm Green Greg, so what do you expect? But I want something light colored and cheery. That's how I picked that. But anyway,
I like the lime green. It makes
this light color is cheery to me. Some people don't like it, but hey, I'm happy with it. To me, it's a happy color.
Yeah.
And I like being happy. Even though I talk about doom and gloom, you and I cut up and laugh. We'll be talking about the end of the world and everything blood, and we'll always manage to cut a joke. I don't know how many you said, Greg, before we start the show, we need to be serious. We don't need to be laughing. And we're not laughing there. We can't help ourselves.
We can't help it. Yeah, it's, good luck with that,
together,
man.
When we get together, we have fun. I mean, it's a party when you and I get together. I don't care what. But anyway, so
we're going to get together again soon, man. It's been way too long.
You got to come down here where I'm at, because I know you come in this area. You can see me and Gail and some other people. You got other friends in this area I know of. I know people that know you right here. So
that's wild. It's such a small world, man.
Really
cool. So cool. Anyway, yeah, we digress.
So let's go on with this. So you got to worry about natural causes like that. You've got to worry. Well, the biggest natural cause is the sun. And, we discovered now that the biggest solar flare was 14,000 years ago. We talk about the Miyake events. We talk about, the Charlemagne event at 770 AD, how much more powerful that was in the Carrington event, how the Carrington event would absolutely fry the grid, how the 1921 railroad event, if it occurred today, would take out transformers in the grid probably. But the fact of the matter is the sun will get us eventually. And I think we're running like a 14% chance per decade that the sun could take our grid down. So we're just playing Russian roulette. And I don't know how many people I always say, oh, well, if the grid goes down, the government will do it. All the government's got to do is what they're doing right now. Nothing. If you want the grid to go down, just do nothing, and eventually it's going to go down. And you don't have to cause it directly. You can just wait. But, we got enemies in this country that have snuck in. We got sleeper cell agents here. And on, I believe it was 16 April 2013, the Metcalf station was attacked by folks with AKs. And I don't want to say the whole thing on here because I don't want you channel get in trouble. AK is also the abbreviation for some states like Alaska, beautiful state, the Great Land. I lived there once, beautiful place. But anyway, so the situation was that SEAL team went in and looked at it, and they said, this looks exactly what somebody would do with a dry run exercise, practicing what to do to actually take the station out permanently. You see, the exercise did not go to that level. Whoever was doing it escaped. We haven't seen, and we can't to this day figure out who did it. They totally escaped. But it happened coincidentally the same day that the North Korean satellite made its first pass over Washington, D.C., and at the same time, the North Koreans had 2 missiles on missile launchers and ISO shipping container floating around either in the Gulf of Mexico or the Caribbean Sea. 3 different ways to take our grid down. So they may have been practicing the multi-pronged hit on the United States. The late, great Dr. Peter Vincent Pry, he started the EMP Task Force of National Homeland Security, which I'm the Arizona State Director of now. And, if you know, I actually chaired 2 power grid defense conferences. But anyway, he would teach us that any attack on America would be a multi-pronged attack. The grid is going to be the first target. He said they would first hit it with cyber attacks. Then it would be the direct kinetic attacks like happening in Metcalf. Then you would have an EMP or EMPs, plural. And I did a video a couple of years back where I laid out exactly how to do it from a balloon. And it was after the Chinese balloon come through. So you'll find that on Green Greg's. You'll find me doing a couple of balloon invests. Why? Because I used to launch rockets and balloons. I know how to do it. I know how it can be done. The Chinese knows too, because they got a lot of balloon work over there. There's nothing I said that they don't already know. I actually showed you how to do everything, how to evade radars, how they can sneak in on us, how it's impervious to all our current means of taking out adversarial missiles and things like that. It's serious. And a lot of people didn't appreciate that. Well, I wrote a white paper based on it for the MP Task Force of National Homeland Security, and it actually got briefed to the chairmans of both the House and Senate Homeland Security committees. Okay, so
what you did got picked up by security, basically, so that they could take that information and secure the airfields or secure.
Well, they hadn't got it secured yet, but at least they're aware of it, and they did pass some legislation that kind of vaguely alluded to it, but the problem is still not answered yet. Maybe we'll get around to it. Maybe the Golden Dome will come up with some approaches that deal with this. I've done videos on how we can make our own Golden Dome using basically solid rocket boosters and just create a impenetrable shield that would take out hypersonics or anything that would be hundreds of miles by hundreds of miles, and nothing's going to get through it of interceptors, just like a shotgun blast of interceptors. And when you get 3 million pounds of thrust, you can do a lot of stuff. Anyway, so that's also somewhere on Green Greg's. I don't know, maybe on Galactic Greg's. Anyway, all that said, so let's get back to the grid discussion. Wow, that's EMP. So there are multiple ways to take our grid down. There is, again, the hacking. There is the sun, which would do it naturally. Now, an attack on a grid might be coincident with a solar flare, so you can be like, who done it? I don't know. But if a nation decides it wants to attack the United States, the first thing they're going to do, it's in the doctrines of Russia, China, and probably North Korea, and to take our grid down first. Oh, yeah. Well, I mentioned the report that came out from the National Electric Reliability Corporation, which is a group, organization of industry, power industry companies, basically. They put out a report. Something failed.
Dude, did you just get 5G'd or what?
One of my ARs fell over.
Oh, nice.
I am armed to the teeth.
Hello. For Arkansas, folks. Really? Arkansas.
Yeah, look, I take this serious. I'm living off grid, and this is my fortress of solitude. I put my money where my actions, where my mouth is. When I was in Huntsville area in Tony, Alabama, I was 26 miles downwind from Browns Ferry, and it was not acceptable. Too many people moved out in my area. I'm on the end of a dead-end road. Nobody comes down here unless they're coming to see me. So if somebody's coming down here and I'm not expecting somebody, I'm going to be paying a lot of attention to that.
America. Oh yeah.
So, I take this serious. The threat is very, very high right now. So all that said, the back to the what could bring us down, the EMPs, of course. There are many ways to take our grid. And actually, if the New Madrid fault earthquake occurs, it would probably rip the grid apart in the United States. So there are natural things that could bring it down. But right now, the biggest probability is due to warfare or terrorism. We are weeks away, maybe days away from potentially attacking Iran. Now, when I was about to say, and I got distracted, that report from the National Electric Reliability Corporation that said that you could take down our grid by taking out 9 critical substations. Somebody ran that to the head general of the Iranian Republican National Guard, or Republican Guard, Revolutionary Guard, excuse me. And he looked at that report and says, 9, I've already got 20 targeted with sleeper cells. This was like in 2014. That was, 11 years ago. What's the state today? Ain't nobody been coming across our border since then. No. But see, what people don't get, people are used to power outages and the power gets fixed and everything's okay. And so people really aren't so worried about this. They think, well, they'll all come back on in a few months. You fry these big transformers, you ain't getting power back, because within a year of the power going down nationwide, who's the cavalry? I remember when we had a tornado in Huntsville, Alabama in 2011. It almost hit Browns Ferry, and it took out the big transmission line out of Browns Ferry, and North Alabama was out of power for
people that don't know, real quick, Greg, Browns Ferry is a nuclear plant, right?
Right. Big nuclear plant. It took out power for all of North Alabama for at least a week. Some places were out of power longer. I was out of power for a week where I was at. And the situation was that fortunately, I was running to find generators to as backup power. I was driving up I-65, stopping various places, and other people were ahead of me. I had to go all the way to Paducah, Kentucky to find generators. But anyway, all that said, the situation now, and luckily there were some gas stations that used generator power, so I was able to get gas when I got back. Grid goes down, you ain't getting gas, you ain't getting nothing. Your cell phones aren't going to work. You won't get gas, you won't get fuel. The water stations that you get your drinking water from, if you're on the city water, all that is pumped up to a hill or somewhere, and once those tanks are empty, there's no more water. The sewage plants back down, sewage backs up. Disease will start to spread. Starvation will ensue because the grocery stores only have so much supply, and they only have just a couple of days of groceries, 2 or 3 days of groceries in these grocery stores, and even the entire supply chain's only got about 9 days worth in it. But will the trucks be able to roll if they can't get diesel fuel? No. And even if they found some way around that, the spare parts systems are going to break down because trucks require maintenance all the time. And you won't be able to order spare parts. The entire way you order stuff is going to be broken down. The internet won't be existent. Your bank accounts won't be there because all your money is digital in a bank. Whether you believe it or not, they may have a little bit in the drawers or in the ATMs, but the ATM requires electricity to work. You're even when you go to the grocery store when they got a couple of days worth of stuff, the only way things are going to be taken out be looting, probably, because the store cash registers don't work. Nothing's going to work. We have become an entirely dependent electrical society at this point in time, and people haven't been thinking about backups. And even those smart meters, which I told you could be hacked, they're more vulnerable to an EMP than the old meters. So I don't think they're too smart. And now they can be hacked. They're vulnerable to EMPs. The so-called smart everything, connector everything, the internet is not smart. It's stupid. It's convenient for the companies. It saves them all the short-term money, but leaves them wide open to being attacked. So what happens? It's been said by the EMP task force, congressional task force, which was mandated by Congress and reported to Congress. They did a study, and they determined that within less than a year, 9 out of 10 Americans would be dead from societal collapse due to a lack of, or just due to diseases and other things. What they didn't take into account was the spent fuel rods. Now, forget the reactors. They can scram reactors. There's different things that could be done, hopefully, to keep the reactors from going into meltdown. if it's done properly. You know, in Fukushima, that didn't happen because the wave took out the backup power and everything else. But hopefully the reactors can be safe, but the spent fuel rod pools have much more radioactive material in them than the reactors. In fact, far much more than all the nuclear warheads on Earth. And they evaporate about 160 gallons a minute of water. And they're about 20 foot deep. So you got a little time until that evaporation hits those fuel rods. The fuel rods are clad in a zircaloy alloy, which includes zirconium, which when hot burns on contact with air. And I've had some nuclear guy try to argue with me on that. I got this test reports from Sandia National Laboratories that show them burnt slap up. So you get them hot, contacted with air, they will burn slap up. Well, guess what? They get these little fuel pellets in. So these fuel pellets burn. And this stuff gets released into the atmosphere. So you've got something worse than the nuclear war itself. That's why I put out a couple of videos to try to explain to people. Everybody's worried about a nuke. Everybody's worried about a nuke. Well, in 2 weeks, most of your radiation from a nuclear war is gone. And people in cities will be gone. Society will collapse if we have a full-scale nuclear war. But if you could isolate and have an EMP with no nuclear war, or a nuclear war with no EMP, which you're not going to really get this. You're going to get EMP and nuclear war, probably, if you have a nuclear war. But just the EMP alone, the effects of that are worse than the effects of the nukes. I've explained to people, but everybody's still worried about the nukes, and they're not worried about the grid, which is backwards, bass-ackwards, as we used to say around here. It's absolutely backwards. You better be concerned about grid down. I live off grid here. Right now, I'm still assembling my solar panels. I'm almost done. I'm actually running off the power that I'm talking to you through is gasoline-powered generators. And I'm actually communicating through Starlink. I'm off grid. This is a kind of a Mars base here, solar power, satellite communications. I'm setting up to grow my own food. The soil out here is red. Now I got these little bushes growing that look like giant broccoli plants called juniper trees. They're about 12 foot tall usually. Some get 20 or better. But so it's not a bleak desert here, but it's a desert for all intent and purposes. I can stand on the road with my place and I can look one way and I can see desert that is nothing but rock. And I turn around the other way and see mountains with forest. So there's a huge variability in climates around here. It's a beautiful place here. Anyway, oh, okay. Thank you, Jennifer. Oh, yeah. Jennifer. Hey, Jen. Hey, she's been here. That's somebody Rex.
Yeah, her and her husband and myself did a petroglyph tour, and it was amazing out there in Snowflake. And we the last place we went to, I remember we saw this big boulder, and on the boulder it said something like entrance to something. And earlier that day, we saw this place that looked like where the little people would be going, that are talked about in Hopi prophecy and Navajo prophecy. And
Scott, tell me about that.
Scott, yeah. So, man, what a trip. I would love to do that again because we saw some weird stuff out there. And I want to go back to that place where that boulder says the door. That was what I was like, what's in there, man?
Rex, let's go. Come on down. Let's do it. Scott built the road down here, by the way. Scott built the road down here. So one of your buddies built my road down here.
Hell yeah. That's what I'm talking about.
We're connected more than you imagine. In fact, you're the reason I'm here in the first place, to be honest. You may not know that.
That's so cool.
Another through somebody else. I met at LeakCon.
Yeah. Yeah, man. We've got some, I think we've got past lives together too. This ain't our first rodeo, man.
Probably not.
We've definitely had some experiences in the past. So
you're like a brother from another mother, Rex.
Oh yeah, definitely, bro. Definitely, man. I feel pretty cool to be friends with Rocket Man. So that's pretty awesome. Let's
build rockets. So I've definitely built rockets. In fact, the fuel grain I've shown many times during the videos just outside the house right now from my Heart Catch Prize rocket. But should have brought it in. I think it got rained on a little bit here the other day. Hope it's okay.
How far did you launch for that rocket that made the Guinness records in 2000?
I'm sure it went over the von Karman line. We had a problem with our with a transistor on our downlink, so we didn't get the actual report. And so it said 36 miles. I would say it's over 60 miles based on the video of the launch itself. And that's what the balloon company chief engineer Mike Smith from Aerostar said. So I'm pretty sure we actually hit space. We were probably the first amateur group to hit space. Somebody else got that credit. We had the credit for being the highest flight of an amateur group at the time. So yeah, it was an amateur group. We're doing this out of our own pockets, out of garages.
And you think it was 60 miles up? That's like 330,000 feet, isn't it? About.
Yeah. So we hit. Our object was to get to the Von Karman line, basically. So, and the catch prize rocket we later built was aimed for that. So, actually, I think we were aiming for 50 miles in the first launch. Now I think about it, because that was the altitude you get astronaut wings for. Our catch rocket was aimed for the Von Karman line. So we've had a lot of adventures out in the Gulf and off the seaboard. That was off the seaboard of North Carolina, from Topsail Beach. So been in a lot of places, done a lot of crazy things. I run from my life from rockets a couple of times.
Wow.
or
when you were in the Army, or from them coming back?
No, none of that when I was in the Army. Shoot. I used to get shot at, but that's before I went in the Army, because I was playing Bigfoot and scaring campers on Sand Mountain where everybody.
Yes.
Yeah, I grew up in hillbilly country. You got to remember that. Planes and rockets. That's right, Matt.
That is so cool. It's interesting because I was in Tennessee just to change the subject for a minute, but it's interesting because you brought up the Appalachian Mountains. I was in Tennessee working on a new project for a month. I was out there, a few weeks ago, got back a couple weeks ago. And when I'm out there, 1 week I spend in this place called Oak Ridge, Tennessee, which is also referred to as the secret city, because that's where they were making the nuclear bombs back during World War II. So it was literally a secret city, and people were bringing in lithographs of the schematics of the of certain bombs that were built at the Oak Ridge laboratories, stuff that I had. I saw a bunch of really cool stuff when I was out there. But I remember talking to this guy that I was working with out there, and he was saying how people are just freaked out about the Appalachian Mountains. Even people that work out there, they stay in their car until they get to their site. And then, even to take a piss, they're not even going to jump out to take a leak, man. They're staying in until they get to the site because of the weird stuff out there. And I told myself, I want to go. I'm like, let's go. Let's,
Look, my group was based out of Huntsville, Alabama. Huntsville is a city that gets people from all over the country. So when we go out, doing a lot of our test flights of balloons, testing in situ test kits before we did the rocket launches. Can he build a altitude rocket and put a camera?
we got a flatter in there.
Oh my God, we saw curvature. We had a camera. We saw curvature.
Yes.
All right.
There. Get a Nikon P1. Sorry, we don't even.
I can prove the Earth is round by watching the sunset and sunrise, watching the sun when it goes below the horizon, shine on the bottoms of clouds. The Earth is not flat.
I don't get it, man. I don't get it.
That would not work at all on a flat Earth, because on a flat Earth, the sun would always have to be higher in the clouds.
That's right.
It's just
anyway.
Flat Earth, goofy. But anyway,
that's something. We'll be in a really deep conversation, and then somebody will have to throw out some flat Earth nonsense, and it's just an immediate glitch. Talk about a way to change the subject really quick and piss people off.
Yeah. Well, let's get back to it. What was I talking about? See, that totally derailed me.
They're trolls. We'll be going.
What I was about to tell, I was just trying to tell a story. Story. We would go out looking for the balloons to recover them because they had our payloads on them. One of them went down to a lady's house in Dalton, Georgia, went down in the garden behind her house, and there was this big silver balloon she saw coming down, and it was beeping real loud to help us, as a locator. This one had our fuel tank, was one of the tests, would it stay at pressure, because we had to keep it at a certain pressure to fire a rocket. We wanted it over 750 PSI. We used laughing gas as an oxidizer. And we used asphalt as fuel, so we paved the road to space and laughed all the way. But all that aside, this woman calls the local sheriff up, and she says, "There's a UFO landing behind my house. Y'all come get this thing." But a lot of our balloons would go down in the areas like where they filmed the movie Deliverance. And the guys on my team would be really scared going there. And in fact, one of them went down in Paint Rock Valley, where I lived for a couple of years, and folks were scared to go around, look around. I said, "Look, guys, let me do the talking. Y'all just keep quiet." And, we go in these communities, look around, let me do the talking. So one of the guys was scared. Oh, they got a character hanging in effigy over here in this house. And I look, when I scroll, he's like, oh, that was the guys who used to that's the parents of the couple who used to babysit my kids. It was just a Halloween decoration. People would get all bent out of shape over nothing. I just didn't take it down.
So yeah, you could have some recordings in the background, have a little tape recorder out there, get switched on by motion sensors, making weird noises and stuff. Oh, dude. So you would actually wear Bigfoot suits and you'd go scare people out there?
It was all sound effects. I used some crazy sound effects. I had built these devices called dumbbells. I'd practice gruntle snorts and taking, kind of a leaping steps to make it sound like a loud a long stride. I practiced all kind of effects, busting limbs on trees, throwing rocks in a creek or a river. I had a whole repertoire of sound effects, and it would scare the hell out of people. And like I said, I can tell the whole stories on that one of these days if you want to hear. But that got me shot at a few times.
Dude, Preston was wanting to do that. He was wanting to put on like a Bigfoot outfit and go scare people. And I was like, Preston, you can't do that, man, because you'll get shot at. And he's like, I will. He's 8. He doesn't know any better, man. So, and he thinks the whole Bigfoot thing's funny because he knows that half the world believes in him and half the world doesn't. So, and we were out hiking the other day and there was this tree that looked like somebody like literally pushed it over, like a Bigfoot pushed it over something. And I said, yeah, that was Bigfoot. And he thought about it for a second and he goes, really, Dad? I'm like, no, I'm just kidding. He laughs. We move on. So, yeah, don't wear. Point of the story, folks, do not wear Bigfoot outfit in the woods. You might get shot at because hunters, some of them are really stupid. No offense. If you're a hunter, you might be really smart, but there's a lot of hunters out there that are really stupid. They're like, oh, it moved. Okay, there's no orange vest. Take the shot. It's got to be a deer.
Deer, a bear. Now, I did all my stuff. I did my work at night, so a suit wasn't required. Besides, a suit limits your mobility. It would get you hot. And, I'd often go running through the woods. There was an occasion I tripped over or fell over a ledge. I tripped over a rock, fell over a ledge.
Oh, man.
I just skinned up my shins pretty good. I was okay. But, I've had some adventures. When I became an engineer, I thought, the rest of my life's going to be staid, boring, sitting behind a desk, doing calculations and boring stuff for the rest of my life. And then I got building rockets. And then when I was running down the deck of the NASA Pearl River barge, from a rocket coming right at me, and I was running down the deck with all these guys around me. And I said, boy, it's just like when I was a kid. Had flashbacks to playing Bigfoot.
Do you think Bigfoot's real? Do you think there's a species of Bigfoots and Yetis and Sasquatches out there?
Yes.
I do too. I wonder if they're actually flying the planes or they're flying the craft. They're the pilots,
I don't know.
I'm joking. I don't know, dude. I'm not even convinced they're real because I haven't seen one. I know a lot of people that claim to have, and I believe them. They saw something, but how did they get here?
Okay, what got me into the whole thing of scaring people playing Bigfoot? So one of my friends,
we were talking about the military. Folks, we're diverting here a little bit. We'll go back to where we were. We talked about the military. Did you get shot out in the military? He said, no, I got shot out before the military when I wore Bigfoot outfits running in the woods. And I was like, oh, that's amazing. Let me tell you about this story I had in Tennessee where I worked with a guy from blah, blah, blah. So yes, back to reality.
Yeah. Well, anyway, some guy thought he saw Bigfoot, and that's what motivated me to. I thought, ain't no Bigfoots in Alabama. Well, I found out later there was lots of reports.
Even in Kansas.
I didn't believe it, so I thought it was a good excuse to start. This guy must be susceptible to be getting scared, so I started scaring people.
You're lucky. Like you got a bulletproof vest underneath your Bigfoot suit.
No, I wasn't wearing a suit, and I didn't have a vest on. Fortunately, most people around there were shooting with shotguns, and I was usually out of the range of shot. But I had to stay out of the range of shot, which on one occasion that left me having to. I had a partner on this occasion. I got a whole big stories I can tell about this in the future, but I think that would be a big diversion.
Yeah. So, all right. So
back to power grid.
Power
we
grid.
got to get a grid hardened. Trump has taken some moves in this area. You can go to the EMP Task Force online. I think it's emptaskforce.com or org. You can find the organization there for that. Also, I got a freedomrestoration.org for those that are just interested in freedom. That's this website I'm still paying for. I haven't updated it in a little while, but we have an organization. We got a group on Facebook. There's a lot of things I do. There's a lot of things I'm involved in. Yeah, if you find that, looks like the task force right there. Yeah. So you can put that link in for folks. I've just done a project for them promoting consolidation of the activities across several different federal agencies, basically to combine them. I wrote the legislation, at least the first set to do that, and the arguments for it. I did, like I said, the white papers on the balloon threat for them. I've done, I work closely with the top management of this organization. I've had many that are management on some of on my channel from time to time. I got to bring some more back and do interviews. I've not done interviews in a while. I got to get back to that. Now that I got a studio and a computer to do it from, I will get back to doing videos. But for a while, I was just too busy with work and everything. So, we're trying to save the world, but unfortunately, trying to save the world is a lot like trying to save a suicidal drunk. And that's what I feel like, and a lot of people just have a lot of misconceptions, or they'll tell me, oh, the grid's okay because, and we're doing this and that covers this and that covers that. But it's like, no, it don't. And I can usually show them what they're missing. So we still got a lot of work to do. There's a company called EMP Primus that's got the technology they invented to harden the grid. And I think there's a transformer in Texas and a couple other states that's already implemented their ground surge blocker, which can protect the large transformers. Unfortunately, like everything else in America, the Chinese stole the technology and used it to harden their grid completely from end to end. We're still trying to sell the idea of using the technology we invented here to get our grid hardened. China steals it and hardens their entire power grid.
That's interesting. So, and then let me ask you what you think about their new sixth, or what they call a 6th gen stealth fighter that has a 3rd engine bay for a plasma cannon, allegedly.
Wow. Well, they're doing a lot of work with plasma over there. China, we've always said, well, China's always just copying and stealing our stuff. And it's been true for a large part of what they've done. It was entirely true up till recently, but they have broke the mold. They've started innovating in plasma engines and jet engines and fusion, AI. Look at DeepSeek. I get ads for DeepSeek all the time. I won't use it. I don't use TikTok because China's basically spying on you. So I don't use either platform. China's spying on everything, guys. They've hacked go back and see my video on green grass. I was talking about China hacking. They just hacked the power grid. They've hacked the cell phones. They've hacked Defense Department. They've hacked everything in this country. And what worries me is, I talk about the power grid going down. I had several people say, well, we'll just get them with our submarines if they do. One, you may not know you have to hit the power grid, but two, you probably won't be able to operate your submarines because they require emergency action messages, EAMs, to launch their stuff. And in fact, they require a message and a validation message, 2 messages. And the communications to these submarines is via 3 towers. So you got to use very low frequency radio to reach them. So it's long wave radio waves. We got a tower in Washington State, one in Maine, and one in Hawaii. Everybody knows where those are, and sleeper cells could take them out in a wink of an eye. They're not adequately defended. We got our doomsday planes that can transmit them. That's true too, if you can get off the tarmac. I was warning people back months ago about the threat of drones, and we had all this drone overfly. I said, look, if the Chinese can put a drone over our airbase like all these other drones, they could take out these doomsday planes, or they could just spray fentanyl basically on the tarmac, and everybody that tried to get in would be doing the funky chicken. It's extremely deadly. So they got many ways done. And now we see that since then, recently, in the last couple of days, this big drone attack that Ukraine put on Russia, which surprised everybody. I'm going, I'm thinking what took them so long? Well, we were planning it for a year and a half. So these are look, warfare has gone into a different world now. Drones, AI technology, There's so many things coming up in warfare that you may not even recognize it before you're taken out. I would say that China is conducting a Sun Tzu war in the United States right now. That's what fentanyl is all about. That's what this hacking is all about. That's what the trade. They already had a trade war on us first because they put up barriers to selling stuff into their country while they offloaded below cost stuff to shut our industries down here. So we've been paying for it, and whatever we buy from them has been financing them building their military. And right now they're building their military faster than we could possibly reduce ships and things like that. So they're on a fast ascent, and we're just kind of crawling along while they're shooting up like that. Now there are those like Peter Zion, demographics experts, and there's several other channels with similar wags who were telling us that China will cease to exist in 8 to 10 years, maybe 5 years, because of their economic problems. Well, actually, their economic problems are overcomable by several different means and modes that they can survive that. The key thing is, will the CCP survive in charge of China? I would hope that the economic stress would be enough to get the citizens to change the regimes over there, maybe bring in a democratic government like the Republic of China, which was the original government there before it got exiled to Taiwan, the island of Formosa, which we now call Taiwan. And they were never a renegade separate state. They never separated. They never were part of the PRC. So I dismissed that entire dialogue from mainland China on that. But anyway, they're Chinese too. I don't know. I'd be talking about PRC, and I've been hitting the fast for racism. I said, wait a minute, these are Chinese. These are Chinese. How is this racist? That's not racist at all. I love Chinese people. They're beautiful people and smart, really smart. So
they're very smart. They're very determined, and
very repressed.
I would. So I have.
I'd like to see them do better. I would love to see them do better.
Me too. And I would love to see a beautiful relationship with the Chinese and the Chinese government and the Chinese people. And I know some Chinese people that are super brilliant and super amazing, and like they know their stuff, and they've worked really hard to get where they are. So I mean, I can go back to 2010, 2011 timeframe when I was writing blogs about what was called the fishy chips scenario, when there were these faulty microchips going into very sensitive systems and computers and defense systems, and they could actually be remote controlled, like shut off via a remote switch. And some of that information could be sent back to sender who was making these chips, put into sensitive locations. So they've definitely, and there's been millions of people that have security clearances. Their information's been hacked. That you can read all about all this on the mainstream news. They've talked about it for years. So they've definitely infiltrated the government, and the shadow ops has infiltrated almost every part of infrastructure in the US, it seems. And so the question is, like, are we going to get to a point where there's going to be like friendships, handshakes, kumbaya, are you all going to get around and go to the dispensary and hang out and drink some coffee afterwards? Or is it going to be like, are we going to see war? And that's time's going to tell. But there's definitely, it seems like we're on a razor's edge sometimes.
Well, to kind of put it in perspective. I was talking about Peter Zion being wrong. I've done a video specifically speaking to that, talking about how the Chinese Communist Party can use robotics to overcome the demographic issues entirely. Not only overcome the demographic issues, but to like double their economy within a reasonable order of time. How they can actually do this, how they can achieve it, the technologies they can use, and how they can pay for it, even with their economy in the dire straits it's in. I mean, their economy is in tatters. They're economically almost devastated, but they can still pay for this and come out of the demographic problem. The problem with this is they can also use this technology to produce a vast robot army. Vast robot army. I mean, we're talking stuff like out of the book of Revelations, chapter 9, 200 million soldiers riding robotic horses with lion's heads that breathe fire. They could actually do all that and not too difficultly. In fact, they have every incentive in the world to at least overcome the demographics problems, because there's a huge economic incentive for them in that. And it would also keep them in power. You can grow a lot of food in the South There you go. True. I got a garden I'm just planting out here. So the fact of the matter is that they can overcome this issue easily. All the stuff Peter Zion saying is boulder dash, is or horse pucky, as Colonel Potter on MASH would have called it. And I'm coming up with another video. Because China's already started this research. They've already started the robotics. They've got a humanoid robot called the SE-01 that's available now. You can buy it for $3,500, and it's the first robot. It's not some cheap little. It's the first robot that actually achieved a human gait. And we're talking about robots and sophisticated robots by 2030 that might be as cheap as a used car, or cheaper than a lot of used cars. Actually, we're talking like $5 to $10 grand for very sophisticated robots just a few years down the line. And they'll be selling these. Probably some guys will buy a robot wife. I don't know if I'd trust. There you go. That's what we're talking about.
Speaking of robot wives, if you're interested, they've got one that fits in a briefcase for the executive level.
That's funny.
It's so creepy, but it's true.
You get tired of your wife, you just put her up in the briefcase, huh?
New humanoid robot fits in a briefcase. Tell me that's not creepy at all. Totally normal. Executive order. Well, I'm an executive. I'm a CEO. It's normal. All of us executives have robots that we fit in our briefcase.
Oh my God.
For companionship.
Yeah, but it'll probably be hacked like everything else. And so one night it'll just turn on you and you will be pushing daisies.
Hey, honey, are you ready?
Exactly.
Last time you put me in a briefcase. Oh man,
you're in a briefcase.
Speaking of robots, I know it got a little weird there for a minute. Is this?
We always laugh. We always get something funny, right?
It's true. For the executive, that's their marketing pitch. For the executive out there that travels a lot, you can fit it in your briefcase. Engine, is this the robot that you're talking about? That's like 200 or I'm sorry, $3,500.
Is it the SEO-1? I can't see the writing there. It looks a lot like it. So,
PM01.
PH01.
Here's the SE01.
That's it right there. That's it.
Wow. Okay. And it's going to be the price of a cheap car.
Yeah, that one's already the price of a cheap used car. So you're talking used cars, brand new robot. Now their capabilities aren't outstanding as yet, but it's not going to take long at all. Not long at all. The advances in this field are growing geometrically. Speaking of geometrics, that's the whole thing by which they can produce these and use these to produce more of them. And you have what you call a geometric growth period. It's like bacteria growing in a petri dish. It can grow really fast at first until it reaches the limits of the dish. So you could have a very rapid industrialization with humanoid robots, but they don't just use humanoid robots. They have flying drones and dog bots and horse bots and manufacturing one-arm robots and little bitty robots that look like tables running around in factories, work in the warehouses. Maybe forklift-looking robots. So they will tailor a lot of them for the application, but the humanoid robots will be used for these things that humans are typically good at, and that's what they're hurting for right now in their demographics. And they will have robots caring for elderly, because they're going to have a lot of older people. They'll have robots working as nurses. And my next video that I'm going to be talking about is on green Gregs. It's going to come out in a day or two, maybe today. It's Chinese super soldiers. China is actually actively and has been for some years researching genetic modifications that can make you disease resistant against various diseases, against radiation, to be smarter, to be stronger. There's talk of being able to shorten gestation time to 2 months. Maybe time to maturity would be shortened. We're talking about possibly having a grown adult in 6 years, smarter and stronger than any of us, maybe bigger or smaller if the application needs it. They could, these guys would be raised like Spartan soldiers probably, or members of the Macedonian military. 40,000 people under Alexander the Great conquered the whole known world back in his day. You get they've already created embryos using CRISPR, genetically modified embryos They've actually made Crimeas of genetic and ape lineages. And they're working on artificial wombs. They want to be able to bring these people to term without ever having to be in a woman's womb. In fact, they've made human embryos from stem cells, meaning they could use either male or female. They don't need men or women anymore for those kind of purposes. If they want to start families down the road to continue to propagate, they would want men and women. But the technology is totally outside everything we've ever known or thought about in the past. And back in 1980s, we were genetically modifying salmon to make them grow to maturity nearly twice as fast. So this technology is not new.
Greg, did you know that you can buy a computer right now that is ran by brain cells?
Yes. You can buy one? You can buy one now?
$5,000 for brain computer. Here, I'll show you that.
Wow, the organoids.
Let's jump over to part 2 on Patreon here in a second and get into the really cool stuff that you can't
check
talk
out my
about.
Videos on Green Greg's, Galactic Greg's. Check out Swivelhead News. I got some funny shorts on Swivelhead News.
I'm going to show those off real quick before we jump on over. So, and I'm going to put the links in the video description box, but check this out. This $35,000 computer is powered by trapped human brain cells. And then they put organoids, which are human brain cells, basically. They created these little miniature brains, launched them into the space station, and they started playing Pong. I just think it's so exciting. You can buy a computer now that's ran by brain cells, clones, drones, robots. Heck, we've even got the president putting on Truth Social that allegedly somebody's a clone robot. I mean, I don't know if I believe it, but I think it's funny as hell that it was put there. Like, yeah, you really want to stir the pot now? Let's start saying people are clones and drones. And yeah, just whether they are or not, it doesn't really matter because half the world's going to believe it. Half the world isn't going to believe it.
In a few years, you may not be able to tell the difference. That's the scary part. You get a video. I mean, look at the power of AI videos now. Look at where robotics is going. Look at where the genetics research is taking us. We're coming into a scary age. But talking about threat, we're on the verge perhaps of war with Iran. Their sleeper cells might get activated. We're on the verge of war with China. We're on the verge of war, possibly even Russia as they respond. Will they respond to NATO nations? We're living in perilous times. I mean, the whole world as we know it could go down in a matter of weeks. Can biotech brain use air to make lightning bolts?
Totally short, quick. That's what they do. Duh. Everybody knows that. So yeah, let's jump on over to Patreon because there's a lot of stuff I want to talk to you about that, So folks, we're going to talk about some more stuff on Patreon. We're going to talk about the recent drone attacks on Russia with cheap drones knocking out approximately $7 billion worth of warplanes, like the cutting edge, they say. Is it true? I don't know, but that's what the news is saying. So we're going to talk about that. And if they can do it, like how easy would it be to happen here at home? Hope not. Don't be scared. Be prepared. And here at Leak Project, remember, everything's bullshit until proven otherwise. And you also want to be the change the world needs to see. It starts with you. And Greg, shout out to your YouTube channels. And you're a stud, man. It's great that we're catching back up again. And let's go.
Thank you, Rex.
Names of your channels real quick.
Green Greg's and Galactic Greg's and Swivelhead News. Now, Galactic Greg's has got no apostrophe. Use the S on the end, no apostrophe. There's two other channels with similar names. You'll see a picture of me wearing a gray knit cap looking like a space Wookiee.
Yeah, nice. Do you play the saxophone?
No, I don't. I do love sax music, though, especially when I was a kid. I loved Boots Randolph.
Nice. You know who's really good now? Sax Squatch.
Oh, that sounds great.
Sax Squatch is awesome. Seriously, I'll send you a link to some of this video.
I got to check that out.
Matt says, Greg is awesome. Good to see you, Greg. Sasquatch.
Sasquatch Moon. I know her. Good to see you.
Sasquatch Moon is a chick. Gotta love it.
Yeah.
Right on. So cool.
Gorgeous, smart lady. Tell space. Jennifer. Hey, Jennifer. Lots of sun here in Arizona, but so many trails making fake clouds. The solar panels are not producing in July. We need to add extra panels. Yeah, well, I'm going for 9 kW, Jennifer. How you doing, Jen?
9 kW. You're getting 9 kilowatts out of solar panels in your.
Well, that's what I'm building, is a 9 kW system.
Dude, that's pretty freaking good. I mean, not for a 3-story house with a family of 8, but for one person in a studio, that's plenty.
Yeah, this is a tiny home here. So
looks good. I like the lime green. Lime green is one of my favorite colors for various reasons. But folks, you know what I'm talking about. High elevation Colorado. Come on. But Greg, I haven't got you to partake with me yet on an adventure like that, because he's a rocket man. He's a rocket man over there, artist over here, artist woo-woo, rocket man. Oh, so another thing we're going to talk about, folks, on our Patreon, we're going to get into, can I tell them just a little bit about you've talked about it on your, okay, we're going to talk about potential anti-gravity tech or wormhole tech, maybe, I don't know, but we're going to talk a little bit about it. And then how about the White House recently disclosing they have technology that can warp time and space? Pretty cool. Pretty cool. So, all right, everybody, have a beautiful day. Hit the bell. Be well. Be the change you want to see. And we'll see you on Patreon. Nanny, nanny.
Nano. Halo.